Okay everyone, welcome to a new lens sharpness test. So we're using the lens sharpness test card that we've got here to determine sharpness on these two lenses. So the lenses we're looking at is the Tamron SP150 to 600mm f5 to 6.3 DIVC USD G2, and we're looking at the Sigma Contemporary 150 to 600 DG lens that Sigma do. Both lenses are fully updated. I've checked to see if the firmware is needed to be updated on the docks and the tap. Both are up to date. So we're going to look at lens sharpness on the Canon EOS R and the 90D APS-C camera. So without further ado, let's address the images we have here. So basically I've got 3 images of each on both camera platforms to determine sharpness. So we're looking at apertures of f6.3, f8 and f16 respectively, and we're trying to determine which is the sharper out of the two. Now I did a recent test recently where I used a teddy bear as a focus test, and it's very possible the Sigma one wasn't completely aligned properly. So that's why I've come to the lens sharpness test card to determine how sharp these lenses are. Not only that, I will bring to you some real world example sharpness tests I've done as well. That's going to be a separate video where we'll look at real world photos. So without further ado, let's have a look at these images. So on the EOS R, we've got the Sigma image here at f6.3. ISO is 500 for all images, so it's a low ISO. We're using long shutter speeds on a tripod, ranging from 1/16 to 1/8, and we're just going to dive into the images really. So at f6.3 on the Sigma, let's just see how good it is here. It's reasonably sharp. At f6.3 I am quite surprised by this lens because it seems to perform quite well at f6.3. So if we look into the centre area, we can clearly see there's some hairs here that are well represented. I used to have a dog, and you know, hairs get everywhere, and obviously you can see there's plenty on there, as well as a lot of dust particles. So looking at the centre, it's not bad, it's not tack sharp, but it's pretty good. Same is true here. So if we just come down to this area here, which I do spend a lot of time looking at, we can see these circular patterns have got a pattern, so it's well represented, looks nice and sharp. And looking over here, we can even make out these patterns in these boxes. Now this is the corner of the lens, the left bottom corner, and we're having a look at sharpness here. So we can clearly see here there's a little bit of fall off right at the bottom of the corner, but the other two boxes here we're getting good pattern detail, so not bad. So let's have a look at f8. Remember, this is full frame, so we'll have a look in the centre again. Looks pretty good, nice and sharp. It's not 100%, it's not tack sharp, but it's very close. Looking at how the hairs are represented on the centre circle here, it looks nicely in focus, not a problem there. Come down to the circular area here, we do have some good pattern detail, and let's move over to the corner again. Let's go in at 100%. Again, we've got good detail. If we compare it to the 6.3 and then the f8, 6.3, f8 gives you a minute amount of detail, extra detail, minute, but it's there. So let's have a look at f16. So have a look in the centre again. It looks a tiny bit sharper, so it looks a lot nicer. Again, the circle here is well represented. We can see it's clearly in focus, and the hairs on the dust particles on there are well represented. Come down to the circular area here, we can look at 100%. You can see that's clearly in focus and nicely represented in good detail. Let's have a look at the corner here, 100%. I would say the corner has come a bit more into focus here, and it looks quite nice. So let's just go back. This is on the Sigma, remember. That's 6.3. That's f8. And that's f16. So to my eye, f16 seems to improve. So without further ado, let's jump to the Tamron. So looking at the Tamron, we want to zoom in there and have a look at the detail. We're slightly off a little bit here in terms of the line of focus, but it's not to change you know, the sharpness of what we need to assess. Looking at 100% again, it looks okay. It doesn't look tap sharp. In fact, I don't think it's quite as good as the Sigma. We can go back to the Sigma and have a look at the center. This is more or less what we're looking at. And let's go back to the Tamron at 6.3. It doesn't look as good. Yeah, the Sigma's sharper, definitely. Yeah, there's no question that the Sigma is sharper than the Tamron G2 lens. We are getting some detail. I wouldn't say it's blowing me out of the water looking at it. When I try and compare the textures of the patterns here, it's blurred. There's not much detail there. We go back to the Sigma. Here you can see definitely a vast improvement. And I did update all the firmware on both lenses, and there was no firmware update available. So that indicates that clearly the Sigma is winning here. If we go back to the Tamron and have a look at the boxes, I appreciate that the exposure is a bit off here, but again, we're at 100% here, and I just see blurriness really around these boxes where we've got texture. If we go back to the 6.3 example here, you can clearly see it's better. I appreciate it's a bit brighter in terms of exposure, but it doesn't change the fact that the exposure, I mean the detail is not there. So let's have a look at f8. Have we got any improvement looking at f8? Let's zoom in there. We want to be at 100% to give us a good representation. Have we got any improvement from 6.3 to f8? Let's have a look. I think they're pretty much the same, if I'm honest with you. Let's come back down, see if we've got any more detail in the pattern here. No, still blurred out. Let's have a look here. We got any improvement? We can see a little bit of a pattern. Let's go back to 6.3 down to the bottom. Got anything there? Not really, no. And then obviously f8. There's a slight amount of extra detail, but not major. Let's have a look at f16 then. Zoom in there. Let's have a look. So I think it's significantly better at f16 on full frame, the EOS R. We can see some hairs here, see some detail. The center looks a lot better. Let's just go back to f8 and have a look at the center where we was looking at. So that's f8 on the Tamron, and that's f16. So yeah, we've got extra sharpness there. f8, f16. Yeah, got more detail there, and we can see some hairs on here, dust particles. Yes, we can see some detail coming through these circular patterns here, which is a lot better. Great, that's what we wanted. And then we can see the patterns here. I'm struggling to recommend this lens, if I'm honest. Looking at the bottom left part of the corner where we've got these boxes, this box, obviously we can see the pattern there for yourself. You can see it's there. We've got pattern there. We can see that it's come back to life. This lens has a f16, but that means it's a lot darker than, say, what the Sigma would be. But we have to stop it down significantly to try and get a good image. If we just go back to 6.3 on the Sigma, it's comparable to the f16 on the Tamron, which is ridiculous. I can't believe it. So in order to get good results out of your Tamron lens, in terms of image quality, you have to stop it down to f16. So it don't look too great to me, you know. If we look at the center and compare it to the Sigma 6.3 center, so we're comparing 6.3 on the Sigma versus f16 on the Tamron, which doesn't look too great. Yeah, that's that one. So there you go. That's the difference. That's what my eyes are interpreting the image quality. You let me know, guys, what you think. So without further ado, let's move on to APS-C on the Sigma. So let's have a look at the quality at 6.3. Basically what you'll find is APS-C is more challenging on these full frame lenses, and you normally have to stop it down, but I've been seeing something really unusual, because it seems to me diffraction, which is basically when you lower your aperture to a certain point, it can affect sharpness of your images, because a lot of people think you can stop your lens down to get better images, but there is a point of no return where if you keep going, stopping your lens down, you'll get to a point where it starts to soften your images and give you soft images basically. So stopping it down isn't always the answer. So obviously it's f6.3 here. Let's just zoom in on the Sigma. So we want to have a look at 100% if we can. So we're effectively at 960 millimeters, because these images are all at 600 millimeters point on the lens. So let's just have a look at these images. Obviously at 6.3 it's not tack sharp, but you are still seeing some detail in terms of these dust particles that's on the circle here. Let's just come down here, see if we can see any detail in the rings. Yes, we can see some detail. It's not as good as the EOS R's detail, obviously, because obviously this lens is designed for full frame cameras, not APS-C. But you are seeing some detail. It looks soft, but at least you can see the detail. Go into the corners. There is pattern detail there. You can see a pattern there and a pattern there, and tiny bit there in the corner. So obviously it is seeable here, the detail in the corners. So let's have a look at what happens on the Sigma Contemporary at f8. Let's just have a look in the center. So it seems obviously it's got softer to me at f8. Let's have a look here. You can see some of the dust particles on the circle here, but it's not easy to make them out. It's almost as if there's camera shake there, but we're using a 10-second timer on the tripod here, so there shouldn't be any camera shake, and both optical stabilizers are turned off. Having a look at detail here, while we can see some of the pattern, it's almost like there is camera shake. Just doesn't quite look clear. So let's just look over here. We can see some of the pattern, but it's not as clear as it was at 6.3. Let's just go back at 6.3, f8, zoom in at 100% and make it fairer. There's not a lot of difference, to be honest. It just seems a bit more blurry at f8 than it did at 6.3. So let's have a look at f16 on the Sigma Contemporary. So let's zoom in again there. Again, it doesn't look too sharp in the middle. Looking over by the circle here, again the dust particles don't look very clear, so obviously it's not too sharp there. Coming down here, I'm seeing no detail in these circular patterns. Now there is a pattern there, very minute for you to see obviously, but it's like blurred that out completely so you can't see the pattern basically. Let's have a look in the corner, see what we're getting here. It's almost impossible to see the pattern. It's there, barely. We're at 200% here. It's also softening the number 1 that we've got on these squares. So clearly at f16 and at f8 the lens suffers from diffraction. So let's see how the Tamron manages. So this is the Tamron at 6.3. Let's zoom in and see what we've got here. Again, I think it's a similar story to the Sigma. It's just not that sharp. If we want to compare it to the Sigma at 6.3, let's just bring this back to 100% and zoom in there to 100%. So that's on APS-C. So that's 6.3 on the Tamron versus 6.3 on the Sigma when I press it. It just looks sharper on the Sigma. Unfortunately, that's my assessment. If we go back to 6.3, 6.3 on the Sigma, and compare the corners here, and then obviously we look at the Tamron in the corners. Oh no, it's very close. It's possible the Tamron is slightly better than the Sigma at 6.3 on APS-C. I believe so. Let's just double check our information. Yeah, that's the Sigma at 6.3 and this is the Tamron at 6.3. Just double check that. Okay, yeah, so it does appear that on APS-C at 6.3 the Tamron might be beating the Sigma here. It's up to you to make your mind up what you think. I'll just double check, have a look at this pattern and double check. It's very close, it's very close. It's up to you to make your mind up. So let's have a look at F8 on APS-C. So this is F8 at 100% there. So obviously it's not that sharp at F8. Can't see any of the hairs here though. Let's have a look at F8 on the Sigma, which is that one. And you can make out some of the hairs. So it's a bit of a mixed bag this. It does appear the Sigma Contemporary is better at F8 than the Tamron is at F8, and yet the Tamron is slightly better at F6.3 than the Sigma is. Interesting. So let's have a look at F16 on the Tamron, where I think diffraction will affect this as well. So let's have a look in the centre at 100%, and let's have a look at the Sigma in the same place. Obviously that's 200%, it's come out a little bit. So pretty much very similar. I would say at F16 the Sigma seems slightly better. The Sigma seems to transmit better light at the very least to the back of the sensor, because as you've noticed that many of the pictures are a bit brighter, so you know that could indicate it might have better light transmission through the elements than say the Tamron does. So let's just have a look at this big circle thing we've got here. Now, like I said, there was dust particle hairs all on here that you can't make anything out there, but on the Sigma at f16 you can see them, although they're quite blurred, but you can see them. So coming down to the circular pattern at f16, I just can't make out the pattern in that circular formation there. Let's have a look at that on the Tamron. It looks just as blurred, so it's up to you to decide which you think is better, the Sigma one or the Tamron one. They look pretty much even. That one, sorry. So let's just go to the far corner. So this is the Sigma far corner, and there is a pattern visible, but it's barely visible. We just zoom in again at 200%, and then look at the Tamron at 200% in this corner. Okay, that's the Tamron, and that's the Sigma. Tamron, Sigma, Tamron, Sigma. So guys, let me know in the comments what you think looking at these examples. Personally, I think it is better on the Sigma lens, is better on the EOS R for definite, because if you see this, if we just, I think we're in at 100% here, that's 100% on the EOS R. That's the Sigma contemporary lens. It's f6.3, and then if we look at the Tamron, same place at 6.3, 100%, doesn't look quite as good in terms of sharpness. So that's the Sigma, that's the Tamron. So for me, to my eyes, there's some, obviously there are advantages and disadvantages to each lens, obviously depending on what platform you're using it, whether it be APS-C or full frame. But overall, I would have to give the Sigma 7 out of 10 and give the Tamron 5 out of 10 overall. You know, take into account both lenses' capabilities on full frame and APS-C. I hope you found this video informative. Looking at these examples, feel free to rewind the video and look at the examples. Hopefully I haven't whizzed past the examples too quickly for you to assess. You know, freeze the video if you want to see any images at any point. And if you would like a copy of these images, please let me know in the comments. I'll see if I can upload it for you guys to see. But again, hope this video helped you out. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the videos I do, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you.